If one aeroplane epitomises Imperial Airways operation from Croydon during the 1930s, it is the Handley Page 42. Conceived in 1929 as a replacement for the Armstrong-Whitworth Argosy and the de Havilland Hercules, the Handley Page first flew on the 14th of November 1930. A sesquiplane rather than a true biplane, the 42 used an aluminium forward fuselage with semi-stressed corrugated skin, a welded steel tube rear fuselage and metal wings, albeit fabric covered. It was powered by 4 Bristol Jupiter 9-cylinder single-row radial engines of 550 horsepower. In total, 8 were built in 2 separate classes and all had historical names beginning with H. Of course, the passenger numbers may seem low, but Imperial Airways was just as much about carrying first-class mail to far-flung corners of the Empire as it was about carrying people. 2 passenger cabins were laid out, fore and aft, and the space in between, adjacent to the noise of the propellers, was used as the steward's pantry. Up front, full dual controls were fitted for 2 pilots, and behind them a position for a radio operator. The Handley Page 42 entered service on the Paris route in July 1931. The following month Hannibal was flying from Croydon to Paris when the port lower engine failed. As the engine seized, the propeller shattered, throwing debris into the adjacent port upper propeller. This in turn vibrated so badly the engine had to be shut down. In turn, the starboard upper propeller was completely destroyed by debris from its neighbour. Even the starboard lower propeller was damaged. Captain Dismore did a magnificent job of landing in a small field, although the tail was torn off by a telegraph pole. No one on board the aircraft was injured. Still, in spite of teething troubles, the Handley Page 42 proved popular and easy to operate on the Paris route, with passenger numbers increasing considerably. The 200 miles from Croydon to Paris-Le Bourget was covered in little over 2 hours. The return flight, uphill and generally into the prevailing wind, could take a little longer, and occasionally aircraft were forced to refuel at Lymm. At airports like Le Bourget and Croydon, forward steps could be used to access the cockpit and forward cabin. Here, David Llewellyn's solar topee stuffed full of books has just returned from South Africa to meet his wife at the bottom of the steps. Hello, darling. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth, wife of King George VI, kindly demonstrates how easily the aircraft could be accessed via the rear cabin door. This easy access, along with the inbuilt air start system, large wheels and low takeoff and landing speed, made the unwieldy-looking Handley Page 42 an ideal aircraft for the Imperial Airways routes down to Karachi and Cape Town. Many of the aerodromes had minimal facilities, and the Handley Page coped admirably. Occasionally there were mishaps. Hannibal, who'd already been retrieved by lorry from a field in Kent, was damaged in a landing accident at Semak on the shore of Lake Galilee. Fortunately, Semak was on a spur of the Hejaz railway, so Hannibal was dismantled, loaded onto rail cars and taken to Haifa and thence to Cairo by sea and land. Hannibal lived to fly again. The following sequence was filmed at Sharjah in the Trussel States in 1937. The film Air Outpost is uploaded to this channel.
Has arrived.
Imperial Airways were very satisfied with the performance and reliability of the Handley Page, and in 1933 tried to order 2 more from the manufacturer. However, Handley Page quoted £42,000 per airframe, double the original purchase price. Instead, Imperial Airways asked Short Brothers of Rochester, Kent, to design a landplane using the wing and nacelle structure of the Kent-class flying boat, already in Imperial Airways service. The resulting aircraft, named the Short Scylla, was erected in the open at Short Brothers' new aerodrome. It was well built, possibly a little heavy due to its flying boat parentage, but proved entirely satisfactory in airline service. It was joined by a sister ship, named Syrinx, also from Greek mythology. The Scylla-class aircraft had nacelles designed to take Bristol Jupiter, Pegasus or Perseus engines without modification. Syrinx was fitted with 2 Bristol Perseus sleeve valve engines to test them in airline conditions, and after being blown over in Brussels was rebuilt with 4 Pegasus engines. The Scylla class never received the publicity that the Handley Page 42 did, but both aircraft gave excellent service until withdrawn in late 1940. By the mid-1930s, Imperial Airways intended to replace the Handley Page 42s with the Armstrong Whitworth Ensign. However, the Ensign had teething troubles and didn't fly until 1938, and at the outbreak of the Second World War, 7 of the Handley Page 42s were still in service. Impressed into Royal Air Force service, they went from being pampered airline princesses to Royal Air Force hacks. None would last long. Horatius was the first to go. On a flight from Paris to Exeter, the crew got lost. They eventually force-landed on Tiverton Golf Course, but hit 2 trees. The aircraft was a write-off. Hanno and Heracles were parked at Bristol Whitchurch during a gale. Hadrian, seen here in RAF service at Odium, suffered a similar fate at Doncaster. Helena was written off in a heavy landing at Donnybristle in Scotland. Her forward fuselage survived as an office for several years. Horsa had a double engine failure whilst carrying £3,000 of munitions. The forced landing was successful, everyone escaped without injury, but the aircraft was burnt out. On the 1st of March 1940, Hannibal departed Jiwani in present-day Pakistan, bound for Sharjah. With 4 crew and 4 passengers on board, she never arrived and is presumed lost in the Gulf of Oman.